My name is Louise Clark, and today I want to try and tackle the subject of MKultra and invisibility programming. I mean, I don't know if they actually call it invisibility programming, but it is invisibility programming. I was subject to MKultra programming, and I know quite a lot about it, but for me, I don't really know. You know, it's not like how this is invisibility programming we're doing now. I just have very vague recall, and through drawing and art I'm able to bring out what is hidden from me. So I want to address it because I mean, I'm saying MKultra, and there is like family bloodline cult programming that goes on, has gone on from the beginning of time, which is where if you traumatize an individual enough, then there is a point at which they have to actually either switch off and disassociate from it and experience it from a different part of self, or they could carry on being tortured until they died, or they could go insane. So they're the options. I mean, people say, oh, no one would mind control me. No, if you were tortured in extreme until one of the three mentioned happens, then that is the case. Now what they find is that bloodlines, it's passed on generationally, the ability to be able to disassociate, to be able to switch off into another self, so that the trauma is no longer remembered or known by the what we call the host, the front personality, no longer knows of what went on in the torture. And therefore, with that going on, they learnt, the powers that be learnt that, well, if you create that in a person, then that traumatized part will always be accessible to them and be oblivious to you. You won't know. So therefore that traumatized part can be utilized for their aims and goals, and you wouldn't be aware of it. Now, as I say generational, because it's a generational thing that's gone on from the beginning of time, that through families, which we call cult families, then it's passed down, and the child, if I had a child, it would be traumatized without my knowledge, without my consent really, and so that it would have that separate self, so it could be utilized. Now this is where people around me, family, or people in the world don't want to believe that this is the case, and it would mean that it's the case for them, so they'd rather discredit me and dismiss what I say, minimize what I say, than take on the enormity of what I'm saying. But I need to say it, because someone needs to say it, and I know quite a lot. Now the thing is, I know quite a lot. I wasn't meant to know quite a lot, and I don't have a lot of memory. But what I do have is a lot of knowledge from other people who are respected as deprogrammed MKultra survivors. And through their knowledge I was able to work out my programming and so forth without really much memory. Now, when it comes to it, I was programmed to be a truther, to be spreading the truth, and I would speak the truth. I wasn't going to talk any different, but I didn't realise it was for an agenda. And so there's people out there that think they're freely spreading the truth, but they're actually working for an agenda to bring the truth. Because once the truth has come, yes, we want the truth to come, but if people was faced with the reality of the truth, it would blow most people's minds to know what is going on in the world. And therefore it's like that is also being considered as a way to disrupt the world, because they won't know how to cope with it, the truth. Although the truth is coming out, but it's being distorted because it's being shared by those who think they're sharing their truth, but they don't know their whole picture. So you've got many people nowadays who are like online, and they're saying, oh yeah, I used to be a super soldier. There's no such thing as a super soldier. That's a term created by those who are creating distractions from the truth. So all the stuff around aliens and all that, these people are bringing in terms like super soldier, when they're in programming they don't say, oh, let's make a super soldier. They do alpha, beta, gamma, deltas, the Delta is a soldier, but they're child soldiers. You know, these people who think they were super soldiers, they're not used no more. This is not true. Because to get out of that is a whole different thing. You may remember being a soldier as a child or in some sort of training, but that doesn't mean you stopped because you remembered. You still will be utilised. They may not utilise you as a physical soldier any longer, because the purpose of child soldiers is to get into spaces that adult soldiers wouldn't be able to get into. And the children who have gone through child soldiering experiences, like my ex that I show in that blog for Rabbit Holes in MKultra, I can't remember the title, but she was used as a breeder, but she was also used as a trained child soldier to go in areas, I think in Cuba, and kill, not knowing, not aware of what she was doing. And I'm not saying anyone was aware of what she was doing, say in her family or anything like that, but it would just be absent time, because it would be these other parts that have gone through the trauma that go and do the work. Now what happened is, this is nature, but science decided, let's try and make it sort of thorough, let's do this scientifically, this programming, this splitting the mind and utilising the parts that come forward that are created by that. Let's do this in a scientific manner. And that is really what the world wars were for. I'm probably going to get in trouble for this video, but you might as well tell what I know is the truth. World War was to study trauma, the effects of trauma on people. And World War II was to study on a mass scale how to split the mind and control the person's mind without them knowing. And so these were the purposes behind them world wars, funded by the Rockefellers, Tavistock. I mean, even Hitler was trained by the Tavistock to do that job. So, and to do this, in addition to splitting the mind, it's like, it's one thing to split the mind and have a separate self that you can utilise, but it's another thing to create the persons that you want with those parts. So this is what I have as recall, is being taken from nursery. I was in a nursery, my mother went to work and paid for the nursery to look after me. It was a government nursery, but I would be taken from the nursery and taken to, I think it was underground places, and I know of the underground places where children are kept in cages. So I was kept in a cage there, but then it's to break you down, to dehumanise you completely so that you'll accept whatever role they give you. So I mean, I was broken down there, and then you know, as a child, you're in a cage, you want to be acknowledged, they just ignore you, so you make noise, you get put in a box. You stay in the box. When they take you out of the box, you're grateful. The monkeys, for me, I was programmed with monkeys, but it's not the only way the programming's done. But they programmed me with monkeys to have a monkeyness about me. It wouldn't be to be fun, although yes, I can be fun, but it would be to have the essence of monkey. Some of the monkey qualities are valued. And it'd be for me to bond, and I did bond with a monkey, and I was placed in the cage with a monkey to identify with a monkey. And even though it's like you think, well, I wouldn't identify with a monkey, well, you will if that's the only way to get out of your box and they look like they were getting a good life. So you identify with the monkeys. The same things are done with other animals, dogs, wolves, many animals. And then they get you to identify as a male and as a female, and I think that's a lot behind the trans stuff, and I'll probably get in trouble for saying that, but I'm not going to pretend it doesn't go on. So what I'm saying is, for this level, this is MKultra level, a government level, and it's not government like Theresa May doesn't know really much about it. I shouldn't think she knows much at all. It's like a shadow government that rules the world. They don't rule the country. So this is what I'm trying to show you, and here is another drawing where we were further on in the programme, and where I was with loads of children, and you start to see yourself as the ape. So that's not really going to teach you much, but it's to show that it's a foundation to it. Now, I was going to nursery, so as far as my family were concerned, I was in nursery. My sister was in the nursery too to begin with, then she went to school. She thinks I was in nursery all the time, but if you do the maths you can see she wasn't actually there, they timed it. Now what happened when I was 18 months old, because I went there when I was 1, then I went to see a specialist doctor because I had problems going to the toilet with my bowels, constipation. So they kept me in for observation for a month. And obviously for heavy duty programming for a month. Now she actually says that I wasn't around really from age 2 till 4, but she later retracted that because this is how things work, and it's not to condemn her memory or anything like that. My point again is the isolation programming. This is done in hidden self, so one isn't aware of that. Now on the surface what you'll find is a lot of people who are like waking up to the fact that they've been programmed will also say, well, you can leave me all on my own, it doesn't matter because I'm so good at surviving on my own. And they think that's their own skill, and it is their own skill, but they didn't acquire that just by chance, is my point. Is that not only are we isolated in cages and so forth while we're being programmed or in rooms on our own, underground, we're also isolated in the front self, in the host self, in the self that lives the front life, in that we will be isolated. And like I was raised with a flea bag, so my mum tried to raise me on pennies and obviously couldn't do it, so therefore I got discriminated against once I went to school. So you end up being in a structure around you, and it's all orchestrated by the cult to be in a structure around you, around your life, that you don't learn the social skills, that you don't learn proper social skills. So one, I'm not getting socialised well. Other children in the nursery say socialising in the nursery, I'm elsewhere. Then when I come out and go to school, I've not been in the school really that much. I'd go to school but then obviously be taken off elsewhere, so I would be isolated then. So when it comes to socialising with the children, my only memory of infant school is behaving like a monkey, throwing their hats in puddles and them not really knowing how to relate to me, and I didn't know how to relate to them. So what happens is, for various setups, the cult make it that you're isolated and you don't actually have many friends at school. You don't really practice the social skills because they don't need you to develop in social skills, because they don't want people looking into your life. You're to just think that you go to school and you're being discriminated against, prejudiced, so forth, and then you feel you learn to cope on your own by doing drawings or really good at playing music, and you develop these self-dependent skills because you're being ostracised in the community. So that is how the childhood of many MKultra slaves will be, is they will have a life that they don't know anything about, and then the life that they remember is being ostracised, ridiculed in the family, put down, and them sort of. That's my dog making that noise. He does do Scooby-Doo talk. So this is so that you're devalued, so you become devalued with no social skills really, and you'll accept less. Because there's nothing in you that's been raised to believe you're worth much at all. Even though to program someone, to split the mind of a person to be utilised for MKultra programming, I understand the IQ needs to be very high, and often in the range of like 180 IQ to turn the brain into like a computer structure, which is what they did for me. I had IQ tests done when I was 2, like you do, when they had that little month session in the hospital with a top doctor, who I believe was my programmer, Dr. Ursula Shelley. And she was a specialist in cerebral palsy, a neurologist, and funny enough I have all the signs and symptoms of cerebral palsy. Yet there is no diagnosis anywhere of such thing, but yes, as a child I would fall over, but I was just told don't run. And you'd think if she was a specialist she would notice them sort of things watching me for a month, wouldn't you? But she didn't notice such a thing. She just noticed that yes, I had no explanation of why I had a bowel problem, and abuse didn't go on in them days. I don't have any recall of being abused in my family in a sexual way, but obviously there's signs that would nowadays be interpreted differently. I'm trying to follow the paperwork. I haven't done videos for a while because I've been dealing with tax. I've had this whole game with the tax office where they stopped my money and I'm not physically able to work, but I had to go and find work. So I've been doing work driving, delivering, which isn't being effective for me really. It's leaving me with physical problems and phones being removed from me and so forth, and interference with that. So I think I'm going through a punishment possibly, and I haven't really done much, although in the past, yes, I did make quite a few videos explaining what I understand of MKultra. So today I'm trying to do that again the best I can, but I did go through a Hell on Earth in 2007, which I sort of still have a brain fuzz from. It was extreme. So, they're done in childhood. It's not like, oh, people think, oh, I'm trying to break a lot of the myths as well, because people are now sort of aware of like, oh, that's celebrities, that's MKultra, oh, they've sold their soul. And it don't quite work like that. They're not been like, oh, they're good at singing, let's go and pick on them to become MKultra programmed. It doesn't work like that. You have to be sort of programmed from so young, and really most, I would say, are born into these generational families and groomed, like to be groomed to be isolated. They're groomed to be singers or performers or actors or whatever whatever your path is really. Even though it sounds extreme, it's true. They groom you for it. So I was groomed to become a psychologist, and I did become a psychologist, and it was in one of their universities. But then I've become an awkward psychologist because I became awake to what was going on and not in a normal way. As I say, we're surrounded therefore by a cult family and friends. They choose who your friends, your family, well, they do choose who's bred with who, to be honest. It's all, they're obsessed, they're Nazi, they're obsessed with eugenics, so they're obsessed with what bloodline goes with what and what genetics they can build. So my genetics would have been chosen for the whatever. I mean, my mum was really good at sort of, she was a secretary and country girl, but her family were all sort of military. Where my dad's side, he was a really good greyhound trainer and a really good gambler, and very good, and his side is, yes, very good at sort of mental and yes, many skills in maths really, and yes, probabilities I suppose, and discernment. And I'd say, yeah, that's my skill is in discernment. I know I was trained also in the underground base level in pattern recognition, and I do recognise patterns very fast that occur, and that is something that monkeys are very good at as well. So we're surrounded. Now people think they escape, but as I say, it is so hard to escape it. It's possibly questionable whether you can. Now I do know a few women who say, yeah, we're fully deprogrammed, like Cisco Wheeler type, who feel they've been fully deprogrammed, and they may have fully deprogrammed, but I think it's so hard to, you still can't avoid the cult. It still rules the world. It still was, they will send in people, meaning we're fully programmed, we can deprogram and we can become aware of all what's going on, but what happens is when you become aware, you realise that all the people around you have been positioned around you, so you step away from them people and you realise they step forward, or they'll be away. We all have what's called a reporting alters. We don't even have just one. We have more than one. We have an alter that would go and report to the cult what we are doing or what others are doing, if it's out of line with what we're meant to be doing. Now people aren't aware of this level of the programming, so they think because they remember things that they're free. No, they will still have a reporting alter until they have communication and agreement with that reporting alter to not go and report. Then they will report, and the threats to us, if we don't report, are extreme. Of like, we'll kill this person, we'll do really serious damage if you don't report. So the people like around you who don't even think they're programmed but are programmed will have other selves that they're not aware of, how I explained earlier, and those other selves will report and they won't know they're reporting. So what happens is, if you come away from the people that you're reporting to, then the cult will send in other people that are suitable for your character to befriend you, and so that you report to them. And you get into this sort of paradox where, well, if you don't report, if you don't tell people what you're doing, then you don't speak, and then you're silenced, and then we've gone into silencing programming, which is no good for the thyroid whatsoever. And so, and it is part of what I'm talking about today, of the invisibility program, because this is where I'm at, is I'm very aware of how it all works, but I'm being made invisible. So therefore it's like I've tried socialising and that's been shown to me that I can't, because if I go out and socialise and meet new people, they'll send in other people and I'll come home with bruises on me, showing that I've been accessed, that someone has been sent in and knows the keys to get to the other parts of me and has accessed me. Who knows what else goes on at that point. I'm oblivious to it, but I come home with bruises, either fingerprints or taser bruises. And I had that over the last few weeks, where I was going out and trying to enjoy life. But it's about, no, stay in your house, stay invisible, and you're meant to be fearful and stay scared of everyone. But it's not quite the case for me. But it's still that if I go out, I'm going to get accessed, and I don't know what goes on when I'm accessed. So what happens is we have to choose how to live life. So it's about, right, okay, I'll choose to be isolated, but then that means that I don't get to speak to anyone, or I don't get heard. So then if I go on Facebook and try to say things of what's going on, I've been putting up pictures of the bruises on me and so forth that I've experienced in the last few weeks when I've been trying to work because the tax people stopped my money for no real. It's not a justify, well, they can justify their reason. I mean, at the moment they've said they've worked it all out and I'm getting my money, but there's a technical problem with getting me the money. So therefore it's like, well, I've got to still try and find ways to feed myself and so forth. So, yes, just heard someone and that's distracting me. But yes, the parts will be in you to report, and there'll be parts in your people around you that report. I mean, they say, no, 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 no. They wouldn't be allowed around you. If you make friends with people that are not of the cult, that are not approved of by the cult for you to be friends with, they will soon stop that friendship, I promise you. It takes, I remember telling a woman once, and I said, oh, we're really getting on well. If the cult don't want us to be friends, it takes 2 weeks to get to the top and back. And she's like, oh, and 2 weeks to the day, and then it was like, bam, cut off. It's like you're not allowed to be friends. So anyone who is allowed around you is allowed around you, and anyone that isn't around you isn't allowed around you. So I mean, recently I've been very isolated. I've been invisible on Facebook. Only my sister and a couple of other people who I also know are programmed too have been able to acknowledge my posts. I don't think they're shared publicly, my posts. I've had other MCs telling me how they thought I was dead because they weren't ever seeing any posts of mine on Facebook. They're meant to go over to Twitter, but they're selective in what they send. So I've been putting on Twitter some updates on my tax situation. But even on Twitter, which is quite good because it sort of shows that you are being seen, like it will show numbers and analysis, where Facebook doesn't show me that. So at least I get some sort of feedback that I exist, because this is all part of that programming, is you don't exist. And I'm not to exist. According to them, I'm not meant to have a life, I'm just meant to be their slave. Now, then, if I put this on YouTube, which I intend to, I know the hits will go up and then we'll reach a point, and it may not be very long, maybe a day, maybe an hour, and then they'll make it like I get 3 hits a day or something like that, and they'll hold it because they don't want me to get high scores, because if I had them, then people would go, oh, let's have a look at that video. So it's about minimising me, just making me as small as they possibly can. So I wanted to make the video to sort of try and cover that. I don't know how well it's, I find it hard to read all this, and especially with my double vision. I managed to get my prisms, which is another story, because they hold back from giving me prisms, so everything I read is double, and why that is the case, well, that's another story too. So yeah, I mean, because we're raised in these environments and we don't have the best socialising skills, we don't, I mean, yes, I can be a superstar and I go and dance away and people video it, and then all them videos are removed from line. So we can do things very well, but we're not the best at going out and socialising, to be honest, and that's our training. So, as I say, we have the reporting alters. If we don't report on ourselves, then we would be punished, and possibly that's why I'm getting bruised, I don't know. I hope I don't report, but I very probably do. But I don't have no intention to. I try my hardest not to. I put things in place that I don't. And yeah, well, I hope I've covered some things there. I've written loads out here, but reading it and speaking it is another thing. I'll probably look later and think, oh, I should have said that and I should have said that. But I just want to get across that we're kept in place, and I'm hoping that even though I'm invisible at the moment and being held invisible, that this video is seen by those who are trying to understand themselves or understand others who have gone through MKultra mind control programming. Okay then, hope you enjoyed it, hope I made some sense. Speak to you soon, bye bye.